We have a delayed start only by a minute or so, obviously because of the fact it has rained here in the last 15 minutes. But the story, of course, is still the same. It's the Texaco Ford Sierras of Klaus Ludwig and Steve Soper who share the front row here today. A big crowd in attendance on this new 4.2 kilometre racetrack at Calder Park Thunderdome that takes in not only the existing road course but also the high-banked Super Oval. A packed field this afternoon, in excess of 30 cars for round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. And joining me, of course, is Gary Wilco and Richard Hay.
Michael, I wonder how many drivers are regretting already the change to wet weather tyres in those frantic few minutes there as the showers swept in. And they put up the delay sign for a short time, but now the 1 minute board goes out and the showers have cleared away. The track's going to dry out very quickly.
Well, let me tell you, Wilco, the two Sierras on the front row of the grid have both got wet tyres on. And the two Sierras behind them, you guessed it, they've got slicks on. Larry Perkins is running a slick, and the Andy Rouse car number 9, the ANZ Sierra, is being driven by Thierry Tassin to start with, and he's elected to start on intermediates, as has Brocky.
Alan Grice, of course, will be starting on slicks. And unlike the James Hardy 1000 of last weekend at Mount Panorama Bathurst, we will have a rolling start for this afternoon's 9th round of the World Touring Car Championship. And as the field moves away, the drivers try and get some heat into those tyres. Let's take a look at the top 15 drivers, how they line up for this afternoon's round. Pole position has gone to Klaus Ludwig and Klaus Niedzwitz in the Texaco Ford Sierra. Their qualifying time of 1:42.92. From 2, Soper and Giudone with a 1:43.35. Row 2 is Andrew Madecki, who did so well at Bathurst, 1:43.74. Outside of the second row, Queensland's own Dickie Johnson with 1:43.94. From 5 is Alan Moffat and Andy Rouse. Thierry Tassin, 1:44.21. From position 6, Larry Perkins and Denny Holm in the Holden Commodore, 1:44.86. From 7, the first of the BMWs, Johnny Cicotto and John Franco Brancatelli, 1:44.93. Then from position number 8, car number 05, Peter Brock, David Parsons, the Mobile Commodore, 1:44.96. Perro and Ravalia in the BMW M3 with a 1:45.34. Then Bryson Percy with a 1:45.43. In the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore from 11 is Seaton and Fury in the Nissan, 1:45.54. Then the second of the Dick Johnson Shell Sierras, Crichton O'Brien. Followed from position 13 by Jimmy Richards and Tony Longhurst. From 14, Gary Scott and Akihiko Nakao of Japan. And rounding up the 15, Winnie Vaught and Alfred Hager in a BMW. A class field, round 9. The Bob Jane T-Mart's 500 from Calder Park Thunderdome. And there we can see the cars now on the 1.2 kilometre high-banked oval. Now, this shower that we had, Richard, early, you've already mentioned the cars that will be running on slicks and intermediates. If a couple of those guys with the slicks can get to the front and use the high line around the oval for the first time, we get a very interesting pit stop after 10 laps here.
We certainly could. I think one of the more interesting things is the fact that the Europeans obviously have no idea of how fickle Melbourne weather can be. Both of the Works Sierras and the quickest of the BMWs, they're all starting on wet tyres, and I think as far as all of those cars is concerned, they're looking towards the World Championship, and they're looking towards taking the safest way out, if you like. They'd be prepared to go 5 or 10 laps, have a pit stop, and still be in the car. There you can see the conditions through race cam there in Alan Grice's car.
We certainly can. This is where they come off the road course onto the back straight of the oval, which is flat here, but it very quickly gets into 22-degree banking as they run down into the right-hander. And I must comment about a very, very big crowd spread out around this 4.2 kilometre racetrack. The pace car is on the circuit and the field is already off the oval and coming back onto the road course. And whilst we're bringing you these pictures live this afternoon in conjunction with the Queensland Golf Classic, don't forget, across the 7 network tonight you'll be able to see an edited program of highlights from the race, and hopefully more highlights next weekend.
You can see that the track's still pretty wet, and most of that spray you saw on the windscreen of Alan Grice's Commodore had been thrown up by the cars in front of him, obviously, but the rain has in fact stopped falling, and it won't be too long before we see the race underway. Cars are starting to form up now behind the pace car. There was a slight delay to the cars setting off because of the showers. They were scheduled to have 2 warm-up laps, but I don't know whether that's going to be the case any longer, because they all seem to be forming up with a degree of purpose behind the pace car as they reach the back of the circuit.
Cars come through the bottom loop at Calder Park. The big field for round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. Waiting to see whether the pace car will go off the circuit and return to the pits, or, as expected, will lead the cars around for one more lap, and we'll have a flying start to the 9th World Touring Car Championship event. Pace car is off the circuit, waiting for the lights to turn to green. Red light is on at the moment as the cars make the approach for the start, and they are absolutely screaming. The lights turn to green. The Texaco Sierras are off and running. Johnson up into third. Andy Rouse's car with Thierry Tassan makes a beautiful start down on the inside of Johnson. He'll make it into third. Perkins is going in very wide indeed. Andrew Madecki not the best of starts, and they now move on to the oval, working the back straight for the first time.
Very poor start by Andrew Madecki, and the two Texaco cars got away to a blinding start. Tassan was away beautifully in the ANZ entry. Now we take 7's race cam. There's one of the BMWs. Can't quite make out which one through the the dirty windscreen on Alan Grice's Commodore. I'm glad I'm not sitting on this side of the car, or he's not sitting on that side of the car.
They're absolutely screaming down the front straight as Klaus Ludwig, car number 7, sweeps it up into the turn. Now, as they come through here, it's very quickly down through the gears, on the brakes for the left-hander that will bring them back onto the road course. Steve Soper in car number 6, and Ludwig has missed the turn. And there goes Thierry Tassan through on the inside. Just one little slip. That could be a problem area in the opening laps of this race.
And yet these cars elected to go to wet weather tyres, and still Ludwig has failed to handle that turn.
Well, Ludwig, we expected to take the lead at the start. They're looking for World Championship points. Ludwig leads the championship at the moment, and Steve Soper was telling me team orders are likely to play a part in this race, with Ludwig being allowed through. He obviously let him through at the start there, but things all went wrong coming off the speed bowl.
They certainly did, and that's where the Texaco Sierras had a couple of offs yesterday, even in the dry. So Thierry Tassan looking good at this stage. He split the four Texaco Sierras as they come down the back straight, sitting right in here behind Steve Soper, the winner of the James Hardy 1000 a week ago at Mount Panorama. They come through the bottom corner, coming up to complete the first of 120 laps here today at Calder Park Raceway. Will carry them across the line. It's going to be Steve Soper who comes out of the turn. Tassan is close, but coming up on the inside of him is Klaus Ludwig. And for the completion of the first lap of the World Touring Car Championship, round 9 at Calder Park Thunderdome, it's Steve Soper, the James Hardy 1000 winner, who leads from Tassan, and Klaus Ludwig in third spot. And that's where we leave our live coverage to return to the Queensland Open Golf. And the first of the quick pit stops back on probably to...
Texaco Sierras back running 1-2, and Tassan in the ANZ car relegated to third, but by gee, Johnny Cicotto up to fourth place in the number 42 BMW has also made a great start in this race.
Made a sensational start, and already cars have been in and out of the pits very, very quickly indeed, including Dick Johnson, who has gone back onto slicks. At this stage, though, the Texaco Sierras stretching their lead. There's the second of the Johnson cars, the one driven this afternoon, with a problem here at the front, trying to tape up. It's already run into the back of one of the other cars. Neville Crichton, of course, and Charlie O'Brien of Queensland. They're in for a quick pit stop. The boss was in only 30 seconds ago for a set of slicks. Sierra's still leading at this stage, coming back onto the road course and heading up the hill, Steve Soper. Let's take a look at what happened to the number 18 car as it gets very much sideways. Cars going in all directions, including Larry Perkins. The Mobile Commodore involved in there as well. Perkins trying to bring it back under control again. The Oxo Super Cube car. Only one of probably 8 to 10 cars involved in that melee. Wet weather rubber working very well at the moment for Steve Soper and Klaus Ludwig as they open the gap up. And it is opening all the time to third place Thierry Tassan. And then, of course, back to the first of the BMWs, the 42, Cicotto and Brancatelli.
Well, the Crichton incident certainly helped to disorganise the rest of the field and has shuffled a lot of the other cars well back now. The leader's getting away. Dick Johnson, who came in for a quick pit stop to change tyres, is now back in 23rd place.
Well, the two Sierras of Ludwig and Soper. Soper leading Ludwig at the moment, out in front still. Wet tyres, as we've already said. Tassan on intermediates, and I think you'll find as the track starts to dry and a line starts to appear, Tassan will start to close the gap on them. You'll see the two Texaco Sierras looking for a wet line as they head down the straight. They're looking for where there's the most water on the track, keep the wet tyres cool, stop them from overheating, and all the time Thierry Tassan will be looking for the dry line and get a bit more heat into his intermediate tyres and get closer to the two Texaco cars up in front.
Alan Grice in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore coming in very quickly for a tyre change. His crew are ready to go to work. Tyre change for Alan Grice in the Chickadee Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore. He goes back into the field again. Alan Grice rejoins the race as Steve Soper and Klaus Ludwig continue the Texaco 1-2 assault on round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. There's the view from race cam, and you can see how quickly the Sierras just disappear away from the Commodore. They're running about mid-track. Track very wet down the bottom, but drying at the top line. And that's just how quickly the little Sierras are able to run away from the cars that basically dominated the opening race on the Thunderdome here. Coming up on the BMW. Now the left-hand turn that brings them back onto the road course.
Grice has obviously been off, perhaps involved in that earlier shunt as they came onto the Thunderdome, because the front of the car has got quite a bit of damage to it, and something is dangling down below, and it looks as though it might almost be something such as an anti-roll bar or something. It could just be fiberglass, but time will tell on that, and whether or not the car is badly damaged. No, it's just a piece of the car. Nothing as serious as an anti-roll bar.
It's certainly been a disastrous run here at Calder over the last couple of days for Alan Grice. There's Terry Tassar going straight past the outside of Grice. He continues in third spot behind the two Texaco Sierras. And Grice's race may well and truly be over very early.
Car 35, the Oxo Supercube Sierra, also, as you can see, got damage to the car on the offside from our camera at the present time, but he was involved in that earlier incident that tied up Neville Crichton and a few others. Some body panelling hanging off there.
Nothing too serious, and of course he was one of the brave lads that started on slick tyres, and evidence there that he's been having a bit of trouble keeping it all on the black stuff and away from the other cars.
A lot of those top fancied runners, including Madeki, have been shuffled well back out of the top 10 runners on the track at the present time. The Texaco cars 6 and 7, Soper and Ludwig, continuing to run 1-2 at the head of the field, ahead of Thierry Tassin in the ANZ Sierra. Then we've got a couple of BMWs, Johnny Chicotto in the 42 car, and then Alfred Hagar in the 43 BMW. Dick Johnson, who got shuffled back in that early incident with a tyre change, etc., getting back onto slicks, has now moved up to 14th place. Pretty good effort, but a lot of hard work ahead of him yet. Steve Soper leading in car number 6, Klaus Ludwig in the second, Texaco Sierra second on the track at the moment, ahead of Thierry Tassin in the Moffat Rouse Sierra. Then Johnny Chicotto in the first of the BMWs, car 42, and Alfred Hagar, car 43 in 5th spot. Then Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Nissan car 15, Emmanuel Pirot and another of the BMWs. The Europeans are doing well here today, followed in 8th spot by Peter Brock in the 05 Commodore, then Annette Meverson in 47 BMW, and Wills and Henley in the New Zealand Nissan running in 10th spot.
Johnny Cicotto, car number 42, coming back onto the road course at Calder Park this afternoon. He was indeed fortunate to survive the first corner shunt that may well have determined the outcome of this afternoon's race. Involved up to about 10 cars. And let's have a look now on our replay, a Park Royal replay in the Alan Grice Commodore. Here they are heading down to the left-hander for the first time. You can see the BMW on the inside has whacked into the side of Andrew Madecki. Grice has Brock on the outside of him. They all collide. Grice's car gets another hit back. Madecki's car is sideways all over the racetrack. And then a further hit as Larry Perkins tries to find a gear. And that's exactly what happened in a very incident-packed first corner.
Race leader into the pits, Steve Soper in the number 6 Texaco car.
This is what we expected as the line started to dry. We expected to see the Work Sierras come in the slick tyres. It'll be interesting to see just how much ground he drops and how long it takes Klaus Ludwig to come in with the other Texaco Sierra, which is now leading the race, of course.
And leading it quite comfortably from Thierry Tassan in the ANZ Sierra, car number 9. That has now moved Cicotto up into 3rd place. So the BMW at this stage, with all the tyre changes going on, is looking pretty good if it can stay up there and circulate quickly. The sun has finally come out of Calder, so that's going to assist with the drying of the racetrack. There's Soper back on the circuit, circulating quickly, but he has dropped a number of places.
Thierry Tassan running second there with the Alan Moffat Racing ANZ Bank-sponsored Sierra, car number 9. And a man who made his name in single-seater racing, had a very nasty accident, has come back to touring cars with a great deal of success, a former winner of the Spa 24-hour race, and running very, very strongly here at the moment in 2nd place. He started on intermediate tyres and putting in a very good showing, and this could be where the Works Fords fell over.
Correct. And the ANZ car carrying our race cam this afternoon. We take pictures from Thierry Tassan and the flight deck, heading past the start-finishing line into the left-hander. We'll take them onto the speed oval. Steve Soper back in 7th spot at the moment. Klaus Ludwig continues to lead and is looking for the wet line around Calder Park for the last lap and a half, so it mightn't be too long before Klaus Ludwig is in the pits. And the moment he goes in, this man will take over the lead. Now watch the buffeting the drivers receive here on this very, very steeply banked 22 degrees coming through there. Now down through the tri-oval.
Just past Murray Carter.
Coming into what is the 4th turn in the old NASCAR circuit. Now the left-hander in a very, very tight left-hander. You could almost call it a car park left-hander. Brings them back onto the road course. So there's Thierry Tassan, 2nd on the road at the moment. However, as soon as Ludwig goes to the pits, Tassan will take over the lead.
The team had some problems during practice with the outside left front rear tyre blistering as they went. Whoa, it's a bit out of shape there, Tassan. They had trouble with the left-hand front tyre blistering, a bit of trouble getting a gear for him as well there. All may not be well with the car. It retired at Bathurst, of course, with transmission problems. Let's hope this isn't going to be a repeat.
With all the dramas and tyre changes and the mayhem that we've seen, there are now only 14 cars on the front-running lap.
I'll tell you what else is interesting too. Just behind, you may have caught a glimpse there, Johnny Cicotto is getting closer and closer to him. Now Cicotto started on wets, and the M3 will be able to last for longer on wet tyres. There's Cicotto at the back of that group. And with a bit of damage to it there, Gary Scott with the Mitsubishi Starion. Cicotto in the little Mark Petch Seals BMW M3, charging down the outside there, past Larry Perkins and Murray Carter. As we said, he started on wet tyres, so we can expect to see him come into the pits, but not for as long as he's quicker than Tassar. Only when Tassar starts to pull away from him, and quite the reverse is happening at the moment, will Cecotto actually come into the pits and change onto slick tyres.
Car number 23, Gerald Kay, the Jag Parts car, is back up and running again after a harmless loop down there. And he's off. As you can see, a very distinctive dry line now starting to emerge here at Calder Park. The sun is out. That cloud burst just prior to the start of this afternoon's 9th round of the World Touring Car Championship has probably robbed the event of a lot of spectacle, and it certainly made life very, very difficult for some of the competitors. Coming into the pit area now is race leader Klaus Ludwig in the number 7 Texaco Ford Sierra. Trying to get in for a very, very quick pit stop. Here's the Eggenberger crew. Tassan is already across the line. Johnny Cecotto in second spot at the moment. Hager in third. Pirelli Slicks going on the number 7 Texaco Sierra. Rudy Eggenberger stands at the front of the car. And Thierry Tassan coming in at the same time. And Klaus Ludwig returns to the race. Tassan is in, so that will put Johnny Cecotto in car number 42 leading round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship.
But not for too long for him either, because he too is on wet tyres, and he's going to find life difficult out there, and he's going to find that he needs to make a stop for tyres too.
Here's the Andy Rouse, Alan Moffat crew, Mick Webb operating things there, and out comes the ANZ Sierra. So we've had any amount of pit activity in the first 20 laps of this afternoon's race. There's a BMW out of shape on the back straight.
Car 46.
And it was all over the place. Meanwhile, Johnny Cecotto is coming into the pit area now in car number 42 to change tyres. Looks like Emanuele Pirro in car number 46. Looks like it was Emanuele Pirro in car number 46. He continues in the race. However, the race leader, Johnny Cecotto, is in the pits now, car number 42. Quick set of tyres, and the Venezuelan is back in round 9.
He and Tassar were running more or less equal on the road when before Tassar came into the pits. Be interesting to see whether or not he comes out ahead or behind the ANZ Sierra of Thierry Tassar. And he's well ahead of it, in fact, so he's made time there. Cecotto made the right decision. He's made a lot of time on Tassar.
So Cecotto immediately into the low line through the banked Thunderdome. And the The BMWs are absolutely flat down through the tri-oval. Car number 15, Glenn Seaton in car number 15, Glenn Seaton, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline comes scorching down the start finishing straight, and Glenn Seaton has just passed car number 43 to go through and take second. So Glenn Seaton, by playing a conservative role in the opening laps of this race, has got the break that he wanted, up to second and still with the Sierras behind him. Down through the tri-oval, Glenn Seaton, 22 years of age, comes from Melbourne, second in this year's Australian Touring Car Championship, first in last year's Castrol 500, 10th in the 86 Australian Touring Car Series, and he of course was New South Wales karting champion back in 1980. One of Australia's most talented young lions, Glenn Seaton, the number 15 Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Number 18 in the pit area.
Second stop for them. Dick Johnson's also been in for a second stop, so the two Shell Ultra Sierras dogged by ill luck again here at Calder today.
Neville Crichton out of the car, Charlie O'Brien in, a driver change, and it's very early in the race for that sort of thing to be going on. Taping out what's left of the front of the Sierra there.
Yes, it really was unfortunate that the rain arrived and caused some indecision on the teams who were trying to guess that the track would dry out inside of the first 6 or 8 laps. And that shunt in the first corner has potentially ruined what could have been a very exciting and close race.
And as a result of that shunt, Larry Perkins, who was up with the front runners, of course, at that stage, is back in about 19th spot on the racetrack at the moment. Busy scene in pit lane 43. The BMW of Alfred Hagar has also come in for a stop. It's fast and furious here at Calder. Thunderdome it might be, but a lot of the thunder and lightning has been in the pit so far.
Alfred Hagar, car number 43, in for a very quick pit stop. And he gets it sideways heading down pit lane back onto the racetrack.
The man who was running third, and he'll drop 5 or 6 positions as a result of that. Should still just about remain inside of the top 10. Oh, nearly understeers off at the end of pit lane there.
Well, the track is still drying, and with those changes of position, Steve Soper in car number 6 has gone back to take over the lead. Glenn Seaton now runs in second spot in car number 15. Race leader, Steve Soper, the Texaco Ford Sierra. Warren Cullen sits in behind him as they come down the start finishing straight. Also Armin Hana in the Maserati. But just look at the speed of the Sierra. He's using the dry line, the outside line, coming down to the left-hander at the end of the straight. Back onto the Thunderdome Oval. Very tight turn through there. And now he'll work his way up onto the banking and the dry line. Be an incredible thing if Steve Soper can put back-to-back wins together. World Touring Car Championship round victories at the James Hardy 1000 and here this afternoon at Calder Thunderdome.
As we said a little earlier, it's unlikely that Steve will be allowed to continue to lead the race as long as car 7 is still in the race and is in second place. Car 7 is running third at the moment, but if it were to run second and Steve were to be ahead of it, Steve would be given team orders and told to drop back. All in aid of more World Championship points. The quest for Ford to become the first ever World Touring Car Champions.
Traffic still heavy. Round 9 World Touring Car Championship. The man who came into the Sorry, it's the kid. Okay. Okay. Pete. Peter Brock's Mobile Commodore team still with 2 cars running in the pack. Coming up right behind Larry Perkins and Armin Hahner in the Maserati is in fact Neil Crompton, our Channel 7 commentator, who has his first World Touring Car Championship ride here this afternoon. Managed to miss all of the skirmish in the first turn, and here he goes down the low line and will take the Maserati and now works on Larry Perkins as they go through the bank section of Thunderdome, packed with spectators' cars here this afternoon. Maserati, though, hooks on for a tow down the back straight.
Crompton in 15th place on the racetrack. He'll be pretty pleased with that, and he won't be unhappy to be on Larry Perkins' tail and trail him around for a few laps and see where they end up.
Meanwhile, the boss, Peter Brock, has moved up to 3rd in this afternoon's 9th round of the World Touring Car Championship. Steve Soper in car number 6, the Texaco Ford, still leads it. Let's check them on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper and Giudone lead from Glenn Seaton and George Fury. 3rd spot is Brock and Parsons. 4th, Ludwig and Needsfitz. And 5th, Hiro and Revalia. 6th spot held by Johnny Cicotto and Brancatelli. 7th by Osterreich and Ratzenberger. 8th spot, Thierry Tass and Alan Moffat and Andy Rouse. 9th is Richardson Longhurst. And rounding out the top 10, Bott and Alfred Hager. One Texaco. And problems, by the look of it here, for race leader. And again. And problems here for the man who led this race earlier. And that, of course, is Klaus Ludwig in car number 7. The car has been slowing dramatically as it works its way onto the oval. We'll see whether or not... no, he can't. He's gone the low line as the Grice Commodore manages to get away from it. So a problem for car number 7. That, of course, yes, he's gone to the infield, so he's going to try and make it back to the pit area, just using the low line right through the infield section of the Thunderdome. Klaus Ludwig in problems. Round 9, the World Touring Car Championship.
And while that was happening, Michael, car 15, Glenn Seaton, has been to the pits and out on the track again. So he was in 2nd place. He'll have dropped a couple of spots there.
And they're getting a gearbox out for that car. I thought as I saw the car come by, Klaus Ludwig struggling to get a gear, and I suspect it's a gearbox that's gone. That's what they've got out there. But they're still having a moment of indecision, but I think that's what it is. Neville Hay joining our commentary at the moment. In the meantime, of course, as Ludwig struggles around, Steve Soper continues to lead the race in the other Texaco entry. And that, of course, would move Peter Brock, the pit stop by Seaton, up into 2nd place on the racetrack now.
Well, Brock, of course, last week came into the James Hardy very, very late with a big charge. At the moment, Klaus Ludwig is trying to limp back to the pit area. He's not doing a bad job of it either. In fact, he's picked the pace up as they come down the back straight. Eddie Matthews had moved up in the Tony Mulvihill black Commodore. We'll see whether Ludwig is bound for the pits. He certainly dropped a lot of time picking the wheel up through the curb. And in fact, will go the long way into the pit area. No, he's going to stay out there. Meantime, down in that same area, one of the Nick Johnson forwards in a spot of bother. So Ludwig, after giving his team cardiac arrest, goes across the start-finishing line, and whatever problem he did have, he now seems to have fixed.
Yeah, he'd be in radio control with the pit. He'd have told them it was the gearbox.
I think Andrew Madecki owns that, at least his 35 Oxo Supercube Sierra once belonged to it. Part of the remnants of the first lap mishap that upset the chances of quite a number of cars here this afternoon.
Well, here's a man who is circulating very, very quickly indeed. Peter Brock up to second in the Bob Jane T-Marts 500 from Calder Park. Car is running sweetly. They changed engines yesterday, picked up 2 seconds for the last session of qualifying. Brock told me just prior to the start of the race, the car feels extremely good. Peter Brock, of course, 42 years of age, been in the public spotlight, probably a little more than he wanted to be this year. 8 wins at the James Hardy 1000, 9 times Castrol 500 winner. And of course, between all those on-track victories, found time out to win the 79 Round Australia Trial.
Brock started from 8th position on the grid and in a battle of survival is out there and running in second spot. We've seen so many cars in and out of the pits, but Brock having a trouble-free run thus far. Getting up underneath the Starion of Gary Scott.
Car certainly sounds well as it works its way into the banking. Running the low line through here. And a lot of the cars just dip onto the flat section, and then the left turn, it takes them back onto the road course. Oh, gets a little sideways coming through there. A little bit of opposite lock. Now down to the right-hander at Valvoline. Car number 3, that's the Mike Freeman, Bruce Williams Commodore. It's in a spot of bother. It's gone off. Parked on the grass, and it looks like the race is certainly over for that combination this afternoon.
car 44, Jim Richards and Tony Longhurst in the JPS BMW, running in 9th position on the racetrack at the moment. They've got quite a few of those European BMWs between them and the front runners at the present time. It didn't worry them too much at Bathurst as the race unfolded. Let's see whether they can hang in there today and do the job as they did and win the 2.5 litre class at Bathurst. It was a big effort.
Richards told me this morning that he lost 1.5 seconds somewhere on the car, and he didn't know where he'd lost it the last time they were here. The car was the same, everything was the same, yet they were 1.5 seconds down on their times, and I think he's hoping that perhaps all will be well in the race when it wasn't in practice.
Well, they had problems yesterday. Jimmy Richards, of course, 40 years of age, comes from Melbourne. Winner of the James Hardy in 78, 79 and 80 with Peter Brock. First in the 85 and 87 Australian Touring Car Championship. Winner of the Australian Enduro Championships in 85. First in the 70 and 71 New Zealand Touring Car Championship. Jimmy Richards, the JPS number 44. Currently 9th on the racetrack. Steve Soper continues to lead from Brock, Pirro, Ludwig, Cicotto and Tassan. The number 9 ANZ Sierra in the pits, Terry Tassan behind the wheel, and they have a motor problem. They were in earlier for tyres.
Yeah, that's an unscheduled stop. They were down to one engine. They had one go in practice at Bathurst. It wasn't an engine problem in the race, but they had that engine go, in fact, in practice here, and now it looks as if they've got another problem with that one, which is rather a pity because they were running quite well, but they lost a lot of time on their tyre change stop, and this looks as if it could very well be quite a long stop. We won't say it's terminal, but it doesn't look too good to me.
Well, they've got nothing in reserve in the way of motors, and they've been through the 3 of them they brought over. Tassan, who has been sprinting very, very nicely at the front of the field. He takes it all in his stride. Much he can do about it. And I think that Andy Rouse might just need a little of Eggenberger luck. It seems that his cars last a little longer than Andy's.
Well, they've shut down the lid, they've waved it off back into the race, but it sounds a bit flat. We'll only have to wait and see if indeed it picks up any speed, and if that problem, which they didn't really seem to know quite what it was, is something they've got to live with.
Thierry Tassan makes his way back onto the banked oval of Thunderdome. Going down on the inside of him shortly, you'll notice the Oxo Supercube Sierra of Andrew Madecki, who had a terrible start to this race, was hit in the side twice, and he's managed to pass the number 7 Klaus Ludwig car coming onto the oval.
Edit Meverson getting the go-by there from Andrew Madecki. Full of purpose after that poor start, as Mike mentioned. And I'm talking about poor starts, Larry Perkins, who got shuffled back almost to the rear of the field in that first corner incident, is now up to 10th position.
Tassan just in front of Andrew Madecki in the Oxo Supercube Ford Sierra. He sweeps it down the outside into the right-hander at Valvoline. Comes through there. And has managed to also pull away from the BMW M3 that was giving him a tough time on the oval, on the approach. So Madecki's race is far from over. Still a long way to go. Round 9, the Bob J. T-Marts 100. Andrew Madecki, car number 35 after that. I'll pick it up. Andrew Madecki, after that great sprint, is headed to the pits. And down there is Richard Hay.
Well, big problems for the Eggenberger team. I've got Klaus Ludwig's teammate, Klaus Needswitz, with me. Klaus, what's happened to the car, do you know?
I heard Klaus had a lot of problems with the gearbox. He missed the first and the second gear, and you have to use 6 times the first gear, and that makes the car very slow, and I hope we can finish the race like so.
The problem's that you don't think there'll be terminal then? You think the car will be able to keep going?
Yeah, I think so.
If there is a problem with the car, will you go over and take over the other car, Steve Soper's?
I don't believe that, because Ford wants to have 2 world champions, and so we have to have the same points.
What a dilemma for the Ford team, whether or not to keep the sick car of Klaus Ludwig running, or whether to put Klaus Niedzwitz into Steve Soper's car, but just suffer 1 world champion.
Thank you, Richard Hay. There's Thierry Tassin, pulled up even before he could get back into the pits. That's the entrance to the pits. Tassin steps out of the ANZ Ford Sierra and walks back home. The Andy Rouse campaign hasn't really worked all that well in the James Hardy 1000 and today here at Calder.
Yes, that's the last of that car that we're going to see over here. They're not going to New Zealand, and they're going to be very disappointed, and yet again no drive for Alan Moffat, and you can see the disappointment on Andy Rouse's face.
Well, if you feel sorry for anyone in this whole deal, it has to be Alan Moffat, who put the deal together. Had Rouse start the car for him at Bathurst. The car expired even before Alan could get into the seat. He's been ill here all week at Calder Park, sitting in the caravan, and hasn't got to even have a run this afternoon. They've gone through 3 engines, and that's the campaign of Andy Rouse in Australia, 87.
Larry Perkins. No, it's not. That's car 31.
That's the Condon Commodore, isn't it?
The Condomador of Warren Cullen and Gary Sprague. Number 11 Commodore, Larry Perkins, after being shuffled back almost to the rear of the field in a first corner incident, now up and running strongly in 10th position. He hasn't had anywhere near the dramas in and out of the pit lane that we've seen many other entries. And consistency is usually...
Oh, shut up and start again, you old theory.
God damn.
Go again.
Car 11, the Commodore of Larry Perkins, coming towards us, up and running strongly now in 10th spot after being shuffled almost back to the rear of the field in a first corner incident. Denny Hulme, his co-driver for this race, as it was for Bathurst, although they didn't see too much of the race there, of course. Perkins, 3-time winner of the James Hardy 1000, as you know, partnering Peter Brock on those occasions, twice runner-up. Also winner of the Formula 3 at Monaco 75, and of course did a stint in Grand Prix racing as well.
So Perkins today without the signage of NZ fluid connectors that is carried throughout 87. He points out that the sponsorship has been a happy one, terminated at the James Hardy 1000, and he has quite a crew to continue throughout the International Series of 87 and into 1988. The fastest Commodore qualifier for today's 9th round of the World Touring Car Championship, Larry Perkins in car number 11. Car number 2, the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore. At the wheel is Alan Grice, presently 13th in the field as he howls down through Thunderdome. It's been quite an eventful race so far for Alan Grice. As we take our Park Royal replay, this was only a couple of laps ago. He started off to take the left-hander, got the car all sideways, and out it goes in the wrong direction onto the wet infield area. Was able to do a 360, get it all straightened out, and then go on and take the right-hander back onto the oval. Alan Grice, 13th.
That's Gary Scott at the wheel of the Dulux Mitsubishi Starion. And Dick Johnson back in the pits again for the 3rd time in this race, and well, that puts him right out of contention, out of business altogether. One change for tyres. They came in for an unscheduled stop. I don't know what the problem was. They took on some fuel, went out again, and this time a lot slower, and obviously something wrong under the bonnet.
He was 17th too, Gary. Keeping in mind that Dick qualified 4th fastest yesterday, turned in a blinder to make the outside of the 2nd row.
Looks a bit dejected, doesn't he?
Yeah, his face says it all. Nobody can look quite as miserable as Johnson can when things aren't going right.
Well, they're certainly not going well for him today. Neil Lowe, his team chief, supervising the work there under the bonnet. So not the happiest of World Touring Car rounds for the Shell Ultra High team of Dick Johnson and, of course, Neville Crichton. Car number 46, second on the road at the moment, to Steve Soper, Emanuele Pirro, a man who is destined, we believe, for Formula One racing next year. Had hoped to try out this year, but unfortunately that was not to be. And it seems more than likely that we'll see Pirro in Formula One in '88, Neville Hay.
Yes, Emanuele Pirro, undoubtedly one of the quickest of the Italians around. He had a meteoric career in Formula 3, came into Formula 3000, which is the one step below Formula 1, and has been clicking his heels a bit this year with just a touring car drive to show for it. But he's certainly shown here he's got plenty of pace, and he's right up there now, leading the BMWs. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when he has his pit stop and who takes that car over. It should be Revelio.
There are, in fact, 3 BMWs in the top 5 on the racetrack at the moment.
Yeah, we said this could very well be a BMW race. They're a very strong little car. The only problem that they have is because they've got a comparatively short wheelbase. If you get them out of line, then they go very, very quickly, as people found out at Bathurst last week. But with people like Pirro at the wheel, that doesn't happen very often.
So, Emanuele Pirro down through Valvoline Corner. Now the run uphill. He's coming up behind Larry Perkins. Perkins is already down a lap in the number 11 Commodore. Car 46, Emanuele Pirro, still second on the road behind Steve Soper in the Texaco Ford. And quite an interesting drive.
Emanuele Pirro is the Italian hero of today's great race field. His career dates back 14 years to when the little Bambino debuted in kart racing. A year later, he was Italian champion. Pirro has achieved success in both Formula
Emmanuel Pirot, second at the moment behind Steve Soper. Headed for a Formula One career, perhaps in '88. Certainly one of the more talented drivers in today's round 9 of the championship.
At 25, Emmanuel Pirot is the Italian hero of today's great race field. His career dates back 14 years to when the little Bambino debuted in kart racing. A year later, he was Italian champion. Pirot has achieved success in both Formula 3000 and touring cars. He's a noted fast qualifier and made the front row for last year's Spa 24-hour Enduro Classic in Belgium. Throughout '87, he's been at the wheel of the Schnitzer Team's M3, in company with fellow Italian Roberto Ravaglia. He's already tested for the Benetton Formula One team and hopes to join Bernie Eccleston's circus next year. He's a natural talent who loves the tag of professional driver, and it's one which sits comfortably with him.
Emmanuel Pirot, second in today's Bob Jane T-Mart's 100 round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship from Calder Park. Do you hear me, Dick?
Again, take two. Dick Johnson's had more problems over the last couple of weeks than any of the Sierra drivers. Dick, what's gone wrong this week?
Well, it appears I was broken the oil pump pickup in the sump, and it just lost oil pressure instantly as I was driving down the back straight here, so I just shut it off and coasted in here. But, you know, that's, I suppose that engine's done a fair bit of work, but that's still no reason for the oil pump pickup to break.
If it's any consolation, Rudy Eggenberger's got problems with the second of his cars, the Klaus Ludwig car.
Yeah, well, that's bad luck, but I suppose I know exactly how they feel.
Back onto the Calder Park. Get in focus. Race leader Steve Soper in the number 6 Texaco Ford Sierra continues to lead round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. Everything running sweetly for him. Let's check them out on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper is the race leader. Emmanuel Pirot second in the BMW. Third is Peter Brock. Fourth, Marcus Osterreich in the BMW M3. Fifth, Chicotto in another BMW. Sixth spot presently held by Klaus Ludwig. Seventh to Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Skyline. Jim Richards is 8th. Winnie Vogt is 9th. And rounding out the 10, the combo of Larry Perkins and Denny Hull.
Car 40 BMW, Marcus Osterreich at the wheel. Unobtrusive, but making their way up through the field as the BMWs are wont to do in today's race, the early stages at least, and up into 4th position.
Yes, Osterreich's one of the BMW babies. They tend to collect a group of younger drivers and give them a run, and he's certainly begun to come into his own. He's gone very well in the German Formula 3 Championship, and if their past abilities to find talent is anything to go by, they found Marc Surer, they found Nelson Piquet, and also Eddie Cheever, all at one time or another were BMW junior drivers. Osterreich could very well go the same way.
End of the Klaus Ludwig, car number 7, just getting by on the outside there of Johnny Cicotto in car number 42. I'll tell you what, Ludwig might be without a couple of gears, but he is doing one heck of a job out here. He's been able to pass Cicotto and is looking for a charge now at 4th place. So he is doing very well indeed. Glenn Seaton just in the background in the Peter Jackson skyline. Ludwig at the end of the long straight here at Calder, into the left-hander and back onto the oval.
Yes, one of the big strengths of Klaus Ludwig, with a vast experience of being able to nurse a car home that's a bit sick. You saw the pickup there, wasn't very quick, and it was not until the car got into its stride that it was able to pull away from Cicotto, but he's nursing it along, minus a couple of gears, and will be taking great care that he doesn't overstress the clutch. Point so important to him at this stage of the race, and he's going to creep back into the reckoning.
Car number 44, Jimmy Richards, was running 8th in the race. Richards is out. Tony Longhurst will go into the JPS BMW M3. That should now move them back a spot, although Larry Perkins is still down a lap. It looks like they've been able to try and get the ANZ Sierra. That's heading back into the garage area. Very quick pit stop for the JPS crew. 44, Longhurst rejoins the race. There's Longhurst moving back onto the oval, out of the pit area. That will move him back to 10th, and probably Larry Perkins up to 9th. And right behind is, of course, Peter Brock in the 05 Mobile Commodore, and it is absolutely howling. Here's Brock coming down through the tri-oval, passing one of the Alphas by about another 50 kilometres an hour. And Brocky, after that 3rd place at Bathurst 7 days ago, is now up to 3rd, trailing Steve Soper in car number 6 and the 46 car BMW of Emanuele Pirro.
Gap between 1st and 2nd, Soper and Pirro, is about 65 seconds. Just a touch over 65 seconds, the gap between 1st and 2nd.
Peter Brock here leading the charge for the Holdens, and certainly proving that he can stay within spitting distance of the BMWs. And in a race like this, with the banking, which it's obvious is putting extra stress on the suspension parts, everybody's saying that it's going to be BMWs and the Holdens that are going to be standing the pounding a little bit better perhaps than the Fords. Only time's going to tell about this. But it's got to be due for a scheduled stop very shortly.
Here comes Brocky now, heading down to the pits. David Parsons of Tasmania standing by to take over the car from the boss.
Brock was a minute 20 off the race leader, Steve Soper. Soper up front in the number 6 Texaco Sierra from Emanuele Pirro in the car 46 BMW. The gap 1st to 2nd, a minute 5, and then that further 15 seconds to Brock. That'll change now, of course, as they're in the pits. Brock out of the car, Parsons in. Nothing lost there, as Parsons has showed previously in his stints with Brock. Fearless driver, young David Parsons from Tasmania. Brock has immense faith in him. Pretty good stop. Tyres, fuel, driver change. Fires it up again and away he goes.
Does he what? Look, one of those JPS crew guys almost went clear over the wall into the traffic.
Puts him back to 7th spot though.
Yes, behind that leading Ford and the BMW some 65 so seconds behind it, there's a very big clutch of cars all pretty close together, very evenly matched. Though Steve Soper can't afford to make any mistakes at all, as Brock tells them all about what it's like out there.
Sixth place on the racetrack at the moment in the Bob Jane T-Marts 100 is Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. and catching Johnny Cicotto very quickly, Wilco.
Yes, he certainly is. About 3 seconds break between those two cars now, and Seaton just
Hang on, let's
edging
do that
closer
again.
all the
Let's
time.
do that again.
Boostman.
What is he, 5th or 6th? Seaton. Glenn Seaton, car number 15, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Catching 4th place, Johnny Cicotto very quickly. A marvellous effort today. The Peter Jackson team fielding 1 car for this event. Glenn, of course, along with George Fury. Their second car that performed with distinction at the James Hardy 1000 last week. John Bow of Tasmania gets the day off to play spectator and assist with commentary. John, they look pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, they certainly do, Mike. The great strength with the Peter Jackson Nissan really is its reliability. It's probably reaching the end of its lifespan as a competitive Group A racing car. They'll have a new car next year, but it's, as we saw at Bathurst, it is just so strong you can beat it to death all day, and it just doesn't miss a beat. It's a fantastic old car.
Well, I tell you what, he's hauling in Johnny Cicotto here very, very quickly indeed, looking for 4th place, waltzing around a little bit.
Well, he's a terrific young driver, and he really goes for it. And as I said, you can drive the wheels off the car, and it just doesn't give an ounce of trouble. Where I think the BMW's settle into a groove, and Glenn's really charging. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes Cicotto very shortly.
No, he's been working away at it. Of course, we'll have that cover. We've got race cam coming to you from Glenn Seaton's car as well. He was superb in the wet. I tell you what, he frightened a lot of Australian television viewers last weekend at Bathurst.
Yeah, well, he frightened me too. I thought I was going to get changed fairly early, but he held on to it as he's doing now. And it is quite a difficult car to drive, and he's quite a master of it.
What's it like on the banked oval here?
Well, it's very, very heavy in the steering, and as the G loads up on the high bank part, it's unbelievably difficult on your arms. And in fact, when I started to drive for Peter Jackson Nissan, I had to do some weight training to get enough strength to steer it.
A bit like flying an aeroplane, isn't it, round this bowl?
I've never flown an aeroplane, but I can imagine it would be.
Well, Crompton keeps telling me.
Short final at Glenn being passed there on the inside by another of the BMWs. Now, I don't know whether the car's gone off the boil or not, whether he just let him through. Trouble for Glenn Seaton. The car is slowing down.
I must have put the hex on him, I think, because as I said, it's unbreakable. It looks like they've got a problem. It's a front suspension. It's a flat tyre.
Yeah, tyre's gone front left.
The left front tyre takes a very big pounding around the oval, and I don't know about Nissan, but I know a lot of the other cars were having problems yesterday with the tyre blistering, so that might be the case in Glenn's circumstances.
Now we'll throw down to the pits. Hang on. So Glenn Seaton limps back to the pits. If he can hold the tyre on the rim till he makes it, he'll be back in the race again. Meantime, in the pits, it's Richard Hay with Peter.
Looks like Seaton's going to make it. It's been a long, slow half lap to get round here with that flat front left.
You have to drive carefully. We'll go for fear that you damage the front suspension, because if you do that, you're just out of the race. So you can coax it back in with a tender hand.
Well, he's still well in the race if he can get there and get this wheel changed, because there's a long way to go yet, and the Nissan crew go to work.
Freddie Gibson directing operations there.
Pretty
front
well,
of the Nissan.
Pretty well drilled crew, aren't they?
Yeah, fantastic team. You know, they operate so well. Everybody's got a job to do, and they just get on and do it. And at Bathurst, you know, they were just marvellous. I've got a huge amount of respect for them.
Get out of the picture, Will. So tyre changed, and Glenn Seaton goes back into the middle stages of this race, looking good for a finish. in the top 10. Was running as high as 4th on the road, has now slipped down to about 8th and dropped a lap in the process, but still a long way to go.
Car 10, the mobile second entry. Neil Crompton getting out of the car now. Peter McLeod into it. Good effort by Crompton in the first half of this race. 15th spot on the racetrack. And in all the confusion that's been going on out there and all the pit stops and all the dramas, that's a pretty good effort.
So Peter McLeod in the pits. He goes out as Larry Perkins comes in. So the man who was running 9th on the road, Larry Perkins, is in for his pit stop. And he has a very capable co-driver today, of course, in Denny Holm. Pit stop completed. Perkins out of the number 11 Commodore, and in goes Denny Holm. They've only dropped a couple of spots through their pit stop. Track now completely dry. Forget that burnt in sequel as well.
We've got all the top 10.
Troubles there for Denny Holm at the end of the start-finishing straight, locking up a break. As he came onto the oval, they've dropped down to 10th spot, just ahead of them. Jim Richards, of course, and Tony Longhurst. Also into the pits now, the number 35 Oxo Supercube entry of Andrew Madecki and Don Smith. The pits has certainly been full of activity here this afternoon.
Peter Brock came into the pits 5 laps early, but Peter, not a big worry for you at the moment.
No, it was lap 36, 120 lap race. We were figuring on 40 at 40 at 40, but I started with a set of tyres that, well, in the wet, wasn't too sure they're going to hang out there wet and dry. We were extremely happy to almost get a lap ahead of most of our rivals early on the race, so played in good stead later on. But I figured, come in, be safe, change the tyres, have a look at them. And just as well because we're on the brink, but we're looking good.
You must be delighted with the way the car's going at the moment, and you think that it can see off the Eggenberger Sierra maybe that's heading at the moment?
You never know. You never know. You're lucky in a big city, and it's running well, and I thought that perhaps things went their way at Bathurst, maybe they'll go our way down here.
Car number 6, Steve Soper, James Hardy, 1000 winner 7 days ago. And he leads round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship at the moment. Let's check out the positions on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper is the race leader. Second held by Pirro in the BMW. Third, Ludwig. Fourth, Johnny Cicotto. Fifth is Ostrike. Sixth spot held down by Peter Brock and Parsons. Seventh is Winnie Vaught. Eighth spot held by Seaton and Fury. Ninth, Richards and Longhurst. And 10th, and making the 10 finally, Alan Grayson, Win Percy.
Thanks a lot.
Well, there's Klaus Ludwig in the Texaco Sierra number 7 that has got a gearbox problem, we know, and not very far behind him is Texaco Sierra number 6, Steve Soper still at the wheel, who's closing on him and about to lap him.
Well, there are only 3 cars rather on the leading lap, and that's Soper, Pirro and Ludwig is about to get the go-by from Soper, so that'll mean only the 2 front-running cars will be on the lead lap.
Yeah, it's still going to cause something of a bit of thought going on in the Ford pit. I'm quite sure as to whether or not they decide to move Klaus Niedewitz into the Soper car when he makes his pit stop. They've said they won't, but I won't believe it until it doesn't happen, if you see what I mean.
See what you mean.
It's most interesting actually because they desperately want to have co-world champions in Ludwig and Niedewitz. I think maybe Soper's been forgotten in all of this. He won Bathurst and he's leading this race and leading it quite nicely. About to put a lap on Klaus Ludwig.
Yeah, Steven Soper was always the man who had the bad luck at the beginning of the season, but now the car seems to be pretty reliable, and Steve is showing the talent that he's got. And closing on, easy to spot the difference between the 2 cars, but the red flash over the top of the windscreen of the Niedewitz car and the white one over the top of Soper's car.
Here he comes onto the back straight by Klaus. Steve Soper puts a lap on Klaus Ludwig, runs the inside groove of the Thunderdome as he moves now through the tri-oval. And that's a very comfortable feeling for Steve Soper. He's dictating this one from the front and doing it very, very easily indeed. Steve Soper, certainly one of the more experienced runners in today's World Touring Car Championship round. Was first, of course, in the UK Mini Championship in '81. won the UK Metro Series in 82. The TT at Silverstone in 83. Was first in the 86 European Touring Car Championship final at Estoril, second in the World Touring Car Round at Brno in Czechoslovakia, and first in the 87 Nürburgring 24-hour. He's up front and leading again after taking the James Hardy Classic 7 days ago.
Back onto the main straight, and Steve. Andrew Madecki still with panelling hanging off the car, heads back into the pits once more. He's had wretched luck here.
He's got a flat tyre too, Wilco. That's Don Smith, I think, at the wheel of the Madecki car. Andrew was fantastic in qualifying yesterday. They head into the pits for a very quick pit stop for a tyre change and to patch up a little of the coach work. Handling work being carried out there to move the guard, obviously off the tyre where it's been rubbing. Don Smith stays at the wheel. Big broth of a lad is Don. Almost rung his bell at Sandown when he got the little duel upside down and wiped it out. But Don's underway again, fastest gravy train in the West. The Oxo Supercube Sierra out and running. Tell you what, there's been more traffic on pit road than the Calder Highway this afternoon. Here comes Gricey into the pits for a quickie. He's up to 10th in the field. Co-driver, of course, Win Percy. Grice is out. Win Percy in the car. Grice helping to get him strapped up. And they have really paid the penalty of that first corner shunt. Percy at the wheel of the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore, and he's headed out. Just how quickly is the pit lane these days? You'll notice they come through the left-hander, back onto the oval. Running 13th now, so they've dropped a couple of spots through being in for that pit stop. Still pretty tight between 1 to 10. And the Commodore certainly seems to have enough poke to be able to outdistance just about anything around the oval. The fellow should know that. It's our red-jacketed commentator, Neil Crompton, who joins us.
Yeah, certainly, Mike. The Commodore down the back straight, particularly without its front spoiler, I've just noticed it would be more than a handful for Winston, and particularly into turn 3 where the car is extremely unsettled, flat out in 5th gear. Quick dab on the brakes and turn in a little pray and see what happens.
You've had a good time out there today in the number 10 Mobile Commodore?
Well, it started out a nightmare and then it dried out and it was quite enjoyable, and I was having a bit of a scrap with Larry.
That's Perkins.
And I think it was around about lap 25, the thing started to get very, very taily, and we decided earlier today that because of the cold conditions we might opt for a slightly softer tyre than we were running on Peter's car. And our Bridgestone radials worked perfectly for about 25 laps, and then all of a sudden she got very taily, and then very, very taily, and it became almost undrivable. So I came in, I think, about 15 laps earlier than expected. And we delaminated. Oh, you poofters. You're all poofters.
Deary me, deary me. I was going to say, is it cool for cats?
Guest commentator.
Now the leading Ford Texaco Sierra is in the pits. Steve Soper is out. Pierre Dieudonné is in. The engine fires. Fresh rubber all round, and the race leading Texaco Sierra number 6 is headed back onto the racetrack with Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel. A very, very slick pit stop from the Texaco Ford Eggenberger outfit.
And still in front.
That was a great stop. Trying to build up speed. Gets back onto the oval now. Dieudonné having his first stint behind the wheel. And still holding a slender gap over Emanuele Pirro in the number 46 BMW M3. Thank you, Patrick Welsh. Yes, things are hotting up here at Calder Thunderdome this afternoon. 7 days ago, of course, Steve Soper in car number 6 won the James Hardy 1000 at Mount Panorama at Bathurst. And he looks like doing exactly the same here this afternoon. Following the incident which viewers saw earlier today in the opening lap of this race, it has really spread out the event. At the present moment, though, the number 6 car has been handed over by Steve Soper to the Belgian journalist Pierre Dieudonné, and he continues to lead the event from Emanuele Pirro, and Klaus Ludwig in the second of the Texaco Fords is third. 60 laps completed in the race as well, and the Sierra is still running pretty strongly, first and third, but there's a whole swag of the European BMWs in there with them. Emanuele Pirro, as Mike said, in second place. Car 40 is Marcus Osterreich, still in fourth place on the track, followed by 42, although 42, Johnny Cicotto, I noticed, has just come to the pits for a driver change, so that'll drop him down a couple of spots. And car 43 also still up and running strongly with Alfred Hager at the wheel. We should also mention that there have been a couple of the major contenders drop out. Dickie Johnson of Queensland had major problems with an oil pump. He is out of the race. The second Johnson car continues to circulate in the ANZ Banking Sierra of Tassin, Moffat and Rouse. Was running in the top 10, and it is also now behind the pit board. Car number 42, Gianfranco Brancatelli and Johnny Cicotto, the Mark Petch Seals. Johnny Cicotto, of course, comes from Venezuela. He's one of the most experienced drivers in today's World Touring Car Championship field.
31 years old Johnny Cicotto is no stranger to the mountain, but 10 years ago you might have expected him to have been on 2 wheels, not 4. Many people thought that Venezuela's favourite son was Caracas to turn to 4 wheels after his success with motorcycles. But Cicotto proved them wrong. He made it to Grand Prix racing before a serious accident forced a move to touring cars. 85 saw him at the wheel of a Schnitzer BMW, and his first visit to the Hardy was rewarded with 2nd place. Last year, he knocked up 5 victories for Volvo in the ETC before returning to BMW for 87. Driving now for the CBM team, Cicotto has been first across the line in both European and World Touring Car races this year. One of the most complete all-rounders in today's field, Cicotto is certainly no Johnny-come-lately.
No, he certainly isn't, and he has a very, very strong runner as a sidekick this afternoon, and that, of course, is Gianfranco Brancatelli in the number 42, Mark Petch BMW. That's the latest here from the Bob Jane 100 from Calder Thunderdome, round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. Steve Soper still leads from Emanuele Pirro, and Klaus Ludwig is third. Don't forget a replay tonight across the 7 network. Let's go back now to the Queensland Open Golf Classic.
Back out from the pit stop, car number 46, which was in 2nd place, but it was a nice, quick, efficient stop. And Emanuele Pirro,
Hang on.
Let's very well handed over.
Let's do it again. Go again. On the next car.
Back out of the pits now, car number 46, which was in 2nd place. Emanuele Pirro having handed the car over, and this the front-running BMW. Unlikely, I would think now, that we've got Roberto Ravaglia at the wheel of that car, who's the BMW number 1 man, and they really will want him to go well here. This is the driver, of course, who wasn't well at all when he came to the mountain last week. He'd had an accident in practice, hurt his ribs, and he called himself a victim of Australian medicine because they tied up the ribs a bit tight, and he almost passed out with the pain. But anyway, he's back fit again now and driving that BMW very well.
Yes, he's in fact had a tremendous time here at in Australia. Car number 46, Emanuele Pirro. Race cam, of course, carried for us today in the Bob Jane 100 from Calder Park by the Commodore. Been driven at this time by Wyn Percy. Good afternoon, Wyn. The Bob Jane Commodore, driven by Wyn Percy, turning into the right-hander. Wyn, of course, carrying our race cam this afternoon. So how are things going for Wyn Percy?
Well, at the moment, not too bad at all. Quite enjoying it. But Alan had a very unfortunate incident at the start. We elected to start on slicks, and I'm afraid it was a little bit too wet at the beginning. So we suffered, and he had a little bit of a biff with someone. We've got no front spoiler at all, and it's affected the car by about 300 to 400 RPM in a straight line.
I'll let you get back onto the oval.
Okay.
With the front spoiler missing, what disadvantage does that put you on? Sorry about that. With the front air dam missing, does it give you any trouble on the oval?
No, the oval's not too bad. It's just the fact that I'm something like 400 at least RPM down in a straight line. The oval, as you can see, is just pushing you into the wall, so it's not too bad a problem.
Don't get in that wall, Win.
I try not to. You're very conscious of it every time, I can assure you.
Yes, it's a new experience, I guess, for you, the banked oval.
Totally.
You'd like to have a go at that in one of those NASCARs?
Well, I'm hoping I can talk someone to at least give me a test run. As long as I don't make too much of a fool of myself, I'd like to.
I can see the NASCAR publicity now from the UK. Here comes Winnie the Shoe.
Be good, wouldn't it?
You've really had a wretched run since coming to Australia, not only for the Castrol, but for the James Hardy 1000, and again today. I suppose it's about time you broke your duck over here.
Well, I hope so. It is very disappointing, but it's no good getting arsy about it. The fact is, that's motor racing. I mean, obviously the team and Alan are equally as upset as I am. But we've got to show the sponsor's flag, so you just keep going.
Well, that's important because your sponsor is the man putting the race on too.
Well, Bob Jane Team Arts have been very good to us, so hopefully we're making it worth their while today.
Thanks for having time out for a conversation. We hope to follow your progress up the top 10 a little later this afternoon.
No. And slowing, coming to a halt, car number 7.
Wait till we get the picture up. Go.
Slowing, coming to a halt, car number 7. This is the Klaus Ludwig car that had a gearbox problem before. He lost 2 gears. It looks as if he's lost some more. And he's limping in. He'll be on that radio now, telling that team exactly what he wants. And if it is gearbox, then we can look at some real fun in the pits, because they will try and change it. Make no doubt about it. They will try and change that box, keep him in the race.
Well, he's limping in now, down through Glowweave Corner. The crew on standby, the Eggenberger crew. He's still got a long way to go, and he's got to prop a couple of times to come into the pit area, but at least he's on his way. Pick up.
Well, he's creeping up the pit road, and he really is creeping up the pit road. They dare not go out there and help him. One hand on that car, and it's disqualification, so it's got to get to the pit under its own steam. It looks as if he'll manage it, however.
So the man who sat on pole for this afternoon's race and for the James Hardy 1000, Klaus Ludwig. The car coasting into the pit area. Could be that the gearbox has gone completely. Eggenberger and his crew ready to start operating on the vehicle and get it back in the race.
That was an educated guess that it was the gearbox. But let's see what they go to work on. That's going to be the important thing.
Klaus Ludwig steps from the car. Klaus Niedzwitz steps into the car.
But it's underneath the car go the team, and you can be pretty sure that they're busily stripping out what can be a very hot and uncomfortable gearbox.
While this is happening, car number 40, the Marcus Osterreich, Ratzenberger Revalia M3 is also into the pits.
Well, Ludwig was in second place before he came to the pits. That elevated Osterreich to second place. Now he's in the pits. 46 now moves back to second place. That's the Emanuele Pirro car.
That's a nice, quick and efficient stop for the BMW, which is already back out into the contest.
Meanwhile, the Andrew Madecki Don Smith car seems headed for behind the wall. They've also had problems. Don Smith at the wheel of the car, or was at the wheel of the car. It's going nowhere. So exit the number 35 Oxo Supercube car. Mechanics still hard at work on the Rudy Eggenberger number 7 Texaco Ford.
Imagine taking your car to the garage and having the gearbox changed just like this. If you could get it done, think how it would cut the servicing prices down.
It certainly would, not only with that, yes, with the gearbox change for
and they're going to do the job properly. They're going to change the diff a lot.
well, big dramas for the Eggenberger Texaco team. Replacement differential ready to be put beneath the number 7 Texaco Ford that was running as high as second in this race. But they're a well-drilled outfit. It's not a sprint race, 500 kilometres the distance of the Bob Jane T-Marts 100, round 9 of the World Touring Car title.
I've seen them do this before, and I think the bogey time for changing the diff unit and everything else was about 18 minutes. They'll no doubt be trying to better that.
So work continues on the number 7 Texaco Ford as the rear end is replaced. Crew working feverishly to get this car back in the race. They are desperate to pick up World Championship points. And Richard Hay in the pits with Klaus Ludwig.
Do you want to do it backing onto the car? Just do it backing onto the car. Okay, straight in. Klaus Ludwig, you had problems with the Sierra. What exactly is the problem?
First we lost first gear, and now we lost the rear axle. So it's a very disappointing day for us. What can we do? But the other car is in the lead, so hopefully they will win.
They're trying to repair the axle, I see.
Yes.
Do you think the car will go back out?
Yeah, sure, but far behind, you know. Maybe we can grab some points, I don't know.
What about the World Championship situation? Roberto Ravaglia is going quite well out there at the moment.
So it will come close. It will be more interesting than in the end. So it's good for everybody. Okay.
And here is the man who leads the Bob Jane T-Marts 100 from Calder Park, Pierre Dieudonné, and the number 6 Texaco Ford Sierra. Driven superbly in the opening stanza this afternoon by Steve Soper, James Hardy winner of last weekend. and a lot now rests on the shoulders of Pierre Dieudonné.
Yes, 40 years old, Belgian journalist, engineer journalist, in fact, by profession. Started his racing career in Formula 3 in the British Championship, and then moved rapidly on to saloon cars and World Endurance Championship cars. He was a member of Tom Walkinshaw's Jaguar team for a while, and then moved out from that to drive for Rudi Eggenberger, first with the Fords last year very effectively, and certainly has proved himself to be a very good number 2 man. He's not quite as quick perhaps as Steve Soper, but he knows how to take care of a car, and he'll take care of himself on that lead out there, no doubt about it.
Well, the 6 car continues to lead. Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel, the man who did all the early work, Steve Soper. I wonder how he feels about the chances of back-to-back wins in Australia.
Explain that to me later. Okay. Are we right to go?
Yeah, how do you feel about back?
Steve Soper, how do you feel about the possibility of back-to-back wins at Bathurst, and now you're leading here at Calder?
Yeah, but I think there's still a long way to go yet. I think there's still 50 laps left, and it's a very hard circuit for the car. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and see if we're still here at the end of the race.
Now, alongside of us is the dead Ludwig car at the moment. They're still working on it. You've had no diff problems or gearbox problems with your car?
No, I wouldn't say I've been nursing it, but I've certainly been aware that it's very, very hard on the car, and trying to be as quick as possible with as less wear and tear on the car in driving it.
I saw you giving pit signals to Pierre out there a moment or two ago. Is everything okay then for that? And Pierre will just cruise home from here in theory, yeah?
Well, I want him to be aware that obviously our sister car is in trouble, and that he's got a good, comfortable lead, and yeah, really take it easy and just get to the finish in first place, of course.
Okay.
Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel of car number 6, the Eggenberger Texaco Sierra, leading the race with under 50 laps remaining and doing it quite strongly, but there is a horde of BMWs right behind him. That's not one of them any longer. It was car 43 was in 3rd place, and they have destroyed the front of the car totally. That's the Rivalia car.
Yes, he's given that one heck of a shake. Down there on near the tyre barriers, and rearrange that completely. There's another insurance claim for Peter Floor. I tell you what, they'll be putting... Oh, and he's had a a royal connection too, let me tell you. His Highness Prince Leopold von Bayern was also involved in that. Looks like he's had a clout in the tail and they've had an off together.
Yeah,
so dramas galore.
That was the Mini Voigt Alfred Hager car.
Yeah, not Revalia, my mistake there.
Yep, Hager, in fact, I don't think was the wheel. I think it was Voigt at the wheel. We'll just check up on that, but we're going to get a replay.
Let's check it out on the Park Royal replay. At the end of the front straight. Uh-oh. Bingo.
Well, it hit the wall first, I think, and then the Prince collected his nose as he skidded along the wall.
Fortunately, the two drivers involved are quite okay, but it has done considerable damage to two M3s. Quick pit stop, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline number 15 in the pits. For its customary stop, Glenn Seekner stepped out of the car. Georgie Fury is in. Freddie Gibson controlling operations. And Glenn Seekner's done one heck of a job in the 15 car in the first half of this race. Now it's time for George Fury. He takes off. And they're still in there with a good chance of a top 10 finish this afternoon.
George Fury at the wheel of the Peter Jackson Nissan number 15 after a quick pit stop and driver change. We check out the top 10 on the Castrol scoreboard, and Pierre Dieudonné continues to lead in the Texaco Sierra, followed by Emanuele Pirro and Roberto Ravaglia in the 46 BMW, then Marcus Osterreich, Roland Ratzenberger in the car 40 BMW, Ciccone and Brancatelli in the 42 BMW, a whole swarm of them, and then Seaton and Fury in 5th spot. Peter Brock and David Parsons hold down 6th, followed by Murray Carter and Dennis Hawley in 7th place. Larry Perkins and Denny Holm hold down 8th place in car number 11. Then Alan Grice and Wyn Percy in 9th spot. And Annette Meverson and Mercedes Sturmetz move into the top 10.
Georgie Fury, car number 15, works the tri-oval. They're still running strongly in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Let's recap the placings for you at the moment on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper and Dieudonné continue to lead from Pirro and Ravaglia's BMW. Then Osterreich and Ratzenberger run 3rd. Ciccone and Brancatelli are 4th. Seaton and Fury are 5th. 6th spot held down by Brocky and David Parsons. 7th to Richards and Longhurst. Perkins and Holm are up to 8th. Grice and Percy are 9th. And the Fraulines are looking fine. Miss Meverson and Miss Sturmitz.
The former Miss Austria, Mercedes Sturmitz, is at the wheel of the BMW car 47, having taken over from Annette Meverson, who started the race, and just by dint of consistency, they're out there running strongly in 10th spot on the racetrack at the present time. They've had a little more fortune than one or two of their European BMW teammates. Car 43 we saw involved in this incident, car 62, Leopold von Bayern at the wheel, and in car 43, of course, the former Miss Austria, Mercedes Sturmitz, at the wheel of the 47 BMW, having taken over from Annette Meverson, who started the race in this car, up and running strongly, and by dint of consistency find themselves in 10th place on the racetrack. They've had a little more luck than number 43 BMW entry of Vogt and Hager.
I think we'll do it again because it is Meverson in the car.
Is it still Meverson? Oh,
yeah.
God. All right.
Sorry, Clem. We'll get it right. There's a shot of them coming into the pits anyway.
Yeah, we'll get the driver change.
Off you go.
Car 47 in the pits. That's the entry of Mercedes Sturmitz and Annette Meverson. Meverson started the race and is now getting out of the car. So the former Miss Austria, Mercedes Sturmitz, will take the wheel. This car up, running strongly in 10th place by dint of consistency. They've had a little bit more luck than some of their BMW teammates. The 43 car of Vogt and Hager, of course, was involved in quite a bad accident just a little while ago.
Also involved Prince Leopold von Bayern. There's the Vogt car going over after clouting the wall and then sliding along the wall, only to hit Prince Leopold as he tried to pull a royal left turn. That's taken them all out of the field of play. 43 is done for the day, maybe for the season. Prince Leopold has tried to limp back to the pits. '21st on the racetrack at the moment, the 18 Shell Ultra High Cosworth Sierra of Neville Crichton and Charlie O'Brien. The car encountered substantial damage in the opening lap shunt. Crichton at the wheel, coming down through the tri-oval area. car, apart from some coach work repairs, has been running very consistent throughout the day. In the meantime, the Eggenberger crew already have Klaus Niedzwitz back on the racetrack in the number 7 car. Neville Crichton in car number 18 comes off the oval down into the right-hander.
It's the Golson father and son, car 27 just behind them, and there's Peter Brock getting ready for another stint in the 05 Commodore, standing by waiting for David Parsons to come into the pits. They're running in 5th place, so heading the Australian list of drivers in the race, but still with the Soper, Texaco Sierra and 3 BMWs up ahead of him on the racetrack.
Cars circulate on the Thunderdome Oval at Calder. Georgie Fury and the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline about to have a lap put on him by race leader Pierre Dieudonné in the number 6 Texaco Ford Sierra. George sitting about mid-track. Dieudonné working the low line, but George shuts that one down as he prepares to come off into the left-hander. So Fury just behind Neville Crichton in the second of the Shell Ultra High Cosworth Sierras. Try to find a way past Neville. And Pierre Dieudonné sitting right behind them, comfortably leading this race in the Texaco Ford. Now up the incline, the only hill at Calder Park. Wait for Fury to pull out of the draft, if he can, as they come down the back straight now. Fury looks for the inside line. And playing pocket pool with Pierre Dieudonné as well. Dieudonné manages to get past Fury and now sits in behind Neville Crichton. See whether or not Fury goes for a drag down the straight in the draft. Crichton keeps it wide. Dieudonné closes up on the inside. Puts a lap on those 2 cars. Pit stop now for David Parsons, the 05 Mobile Commodore. David steps out, the boss steps in. Their earlier stop was very, very quick. And Peter Brock and David Parsons presently 5th in the Bob Jane T-Marts 100, behind the combination of Pierre Dieudonné and Steve Soper, then Emanuele Pirro, and then Osterreich and Ratzenberger. Great stop, Rocky's underway. 05 has dropped the spot to Georgie Fury, and he stepped the pace up. Peter Brock, 05, comes down into the tri-oval after dropping a spot during that pit stop to Georgie Fury and the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. This is where the Brock Commodore certainly makes up a little ground.
Highest running of the Holden Commodores at the moment. Brocky seemed very pleased with the way that things were going earlier on when I talked to him while David Parsons was in the car. The only problem that they'd had were tyres, which were beginning to go off a little bit. They started on a cut slick past the number 10 car there, the other Mobil team car, and running very nicely too. Brock well pleased, and I think he thinks that all is not lost yet.
No, well, we've seen a couple of the drivers exit in rather spectacular circumstances. I guess we would have given away Klaus Ludwig as a non-finisher, but Rudy Eggenberger's crew have him back on the racetrack, and he's circulating quickly.
In 16th place, so he's a lot better off than some.
It'd be a good even money bet for a top 7 or 8 finish for Klaus Ludwig.
Well, it also brings like all sorts of vagaries of the World Touring Car Championship, where drivers who aren't registered for the championship can't score points, and the number of cars ahead of him are the cars that can, in his class, that can score points in the championship. Neil Crompton there.
Waiting for Peter McLeod to come in the number 10 Mobil Commodore. He's acquitted himself rather well today here at Calder Park.
They're in 11th place, the number 10 car.
Peter Brock, meanwhile, dealing with, or attempting to deal with BMWs at the end of the straight. Drives under that one. There's David Parsons, who did very well for Peter Brock, taking over the driving chores of the 05 car. This should give us an opportunity to have a look at the speed difference between the Commodore and that M3 as they work their way through the oval. Down through the kink in the front straight. Car's absolutely flat there. Watch the M3 close though under brakes. Now. Only marginally. Brock was very, very swift through there.
And running a fine race. Just to throw one other little thing into the equation, I noticed that casting an eye down at the lap chart that we have here, that the Works Sierra that's leading at the moment only did 50 laps between its 2 stops. It stopped once fairly early on for tyres on about lap 8, and then came in again on lap 58, which would mean that the car would almost certainly have to make one more stop, and that could make the difference between a BMW and a Ford victory.
It certainly could. BMWs have been circulating quickly here all day. Soper was blindingly fast in the opening laps of the race. Let's check them out on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper continues to lead from Piro's BMW. Osterreich, another BMW, was 3rd. And 4th, Cicotto and Brancatelli. 5th spot, the Peter Jackson Skyline of Seaton and Fury. 6 held down by Peter Perfect and David Parsons. Then the Perkins Home Commodore, followed by Grice and Percy, Miss Mugison and Miss Sturmitz. And Cullen and Sprague get on the top 10. Pit stop now for the number 10 Mobil Commodore.
Larry Perkins is also in the pitch at the same time, so 2 Commodores there at the moment with driver changes and fuel tyre changes.
Peter McLeod is out of the car. Neil Crompton goes in for the sprint to the checkered flag. Had some trouble with his belts at Sandown. Finished that one with a squeaky voice after they caught another part of his anatomy in the belt. Had to try and wriggle around in the seat for something like 20 or 30 laps. I think they've overcome the problem today. So an orderly stop for the Mobil team.
A long stop though. They're having trouble adjusting the seat as well as the belts.
I can't believe this. It goes on at every pit stop. Larry Perkins, in the meantime, has been in and gone, had a shower, shave and a shampoo and left.
I'm just wondering whether or not I should nip down and see if I can give him a hand there. They're having terrible trouble.
Yeah, it just seems to have taken forever for the driver change between Peter McLeod and Neil Crompton. And there's something gone wrong with the belts in the car.
And this, of course, is not the first time that's happened, not just for Neil Crompton, but also for Peter Brock.
Well, Crompton would have the hair standing up on the back of his neck. He's gone sideways out of the pits, and that has been a very costly pit stop for the Mobile dealer team. Pick up in another car. We couldn't very well say, there goes the Wally Wanker from Bullamakanka, could you?
We should have a look at 31, I guess, if he's in the top 10.
Lap number 85. Top shot. Lap number 85 of the Bob Jane T-Marts 100. And Win Percy bringing in the Alan Grice Chickadee Commodore. He's already told the crew he's detected a vibration in the car. In for a pit stop, looking for Gricey. Win Percy stays in the car.
I don't know what it is. You could hear him say they were in 7th place.
He would hope that it'd be something like a wheel balance, but judging by the way they're looking underneath the car, I should say it's something probably a bit more serious than that.
No sign of Alan Grice.
Certainly doesn't seem to be any hurry. That might be it, I think, for the Bob Jane Commodore.
Yes, Win Percy has stepped out of the car. Is running 7th in the field. No sign of Alan Grice, and Win Percy about to step behind the concrete wall. Their race is over. Alan Grice just shakes his head. There's another one that slipped away. The Akubra goes on. Win continues to explain, but the combination of Win Percy and Gricey for the World Touring Car rounds, they tried, given it their best shot, but they've wound up in the pits this afternoon with a non-finish.
32 cars started, and after 85 laps out of 120, there are only 20 cars remaining. 31, Warren Cullen, Gary Sprague in the Commodore, into the top 10 in 9th place, in fact, at the moment. But certainly having a few handling problems with the car.
Cullen at the wheel at the moment. And,
It's been slipping all over the place.
handling problems could be the thing. Into the pits he comes.
2 laps down on the leader, Steve Soper, they are at the moment. But that's no disgrace, because the rest of the field is strung out a long way behind these guys. And if they can make this a quick stop, they can probably retain their top 10 position.
I'm beginning to wonder, actually, whether or not we've been spending too much time talking to the likes of Murray Walker. Every car that we turn to seems to be coming into the pits.
Problems here for another of the Commodores. Looks like Gary Rush in the Kalari Transport number 26 car. He's had a slide off, coming off the oval into the left-hander. But he's picked it up, and Rush continues.
.05, hard charging Peter Brock back behind the wheel of the Mobile Commodore, and looking pretty strong, although he's had a couple of anxious moments here coming .05, hard charging Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. Up and running strongly in 6th position on the racetrack, although he's had a couple of anxious moments. This is one of them. Peter Brock just a little bit out of shape here.
Just a little. Well and truly out of shape. And he's caught it back, then had to turn it once again onto the oval. Busy behind the wheel, Peter Brock. That on our Park Royal replay. He continues in the 05 Mobile Commodore.
They're 3rd and 4th. No, he's a lap behind, sorry, yeah. Seaton's a lap behind. 46. Yeah, second one's 46. And number 10 after 26.
George Fury, car number 15, the Nissan Skyline, coming back onto Calder's extremely long start-finishing straight. And George and Glenn Seaton have done well here today, 5th on the road at the moment.
They're a lap down on the race leader, but the way things have been going in this race, one pit stop could change all that.
And behind car number 15 is, of course, Peter Brock, then Larry Perkins. George Fury leads the Australian contingent of drivers behind the overseas boys as he works his way onto the banks at Thunderdome. Pit stop for Gary Rush, Tony Noski.
Yes, we saw them have a bit of a spin out there a little while ago. Probably did some tyre damage. Wisely have come in for a change. They were running in 10th position. This will probably drop them a couple of spots.
So the Kalari Transport Commodore has been handed over to Tony Noski. Gary Rush has done the first stint of the race.
We haven't had a look at 42 since Brancatelli got in the car, have we?
Car number 42, the Mark Petch Mechanical Seals BMW. Gianfranco Brancatelli at the wheel.
Let me tell you, when Johnny Gicotto handed the car over to him, he was not pleased. Unfortunately, I think when the car came in for its early pit stop, from wet tyres to slick tyres, they put on the wrong compound, and the tyres that came off were a real mess.
The car has Mark Petch's name all over it because Mark has in fact bought the car. Mark Petch, well known in Australian touring car circles, of course, in the 86 season, ran a Volvo with Robbie Francevic, and he'll be campaigning this car, hopefully in Australia and New Zealand next season. But at the moment, it's Gicotto and Brancatelli at the wheel. And this will be a potent little car in the hands of Mark Petch for the local competition next season.
Well, in Europe, it has been one of, if not the most successful M3 all season. And it certainly proved to be the quickest while they've been out here. Always the fastest of the M3s in qualifying.
They certainly have plenty of bruised egos between the two guys who share the car too. I don't think they're the closest of friends, are they?
Well, no, it's long been a bit of a problem. Drivers in touring cars, because there are two of them, they tend to have different ideas as to how the car should be set up, and I don't think that helps. Also, when you've got two very, very good drivers of the class of Brancatelli and Gicotto, egos tend to come into play as to who should drive the first stint, and if somebody else gets to drive the first stint, if the car ever goes out, the second driver never gets a go, and I think that causes a bit of friction between the two of them, but they seem to get on very well together, and they've also been very successful together, so you can't knock that.
At the moment, Gianfranco Brancatelli trailing George Fury in the number 30 car on the racetrack. Keeping in mind, though, the car is still 4th overall. Fury takes it in wide. He just left enough of a gap there for Brancatelli. In fact, George left a gap big enough to put a diesel through there. And we'll see what the speed of the Nissan Skyline is like now that they've got onto the oval part of the circuit, and whether he can haul him in. Doesn't look like it. In fact, Glenn Seaton earlier today was able to run away from the M3s across the oval. Brancatelli hasn't let up. Leaves the braking right to the last moment. Comes back on to the end of the old front straight here at Calder. George has got to do all of the trailing again. But Georgie Fury has been at this game for quite a number of years. 42 years of age, from Tal Malmo in New South Wales. First in the 86 and the 87 Castrol 500, runner-up in the 83 and 86 Australian Championship, first in the 77, 79 Australian Rally Championship, and of course the winner of the 77 and 79 Southern Cross Rally, George Fury, driving the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline, sharing their car today with Glenn Seaton.
Yes. Car 6, the Eggenberger Texaco Sierra, Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel is the race leader still. As we wind down the laps here at Calder, Sober, Dieudonné in front from Pirro and Ravalia in the BMW second place, followed by Osterreich and Ratzenberger in third, then Cicotto and Brancatelli in fourth, Seaton and Fury in the Nissan in fifth spot, then Brock and Parsons in the Mobile Dealer Team Commodore, Perkins and Holm in seventh position, followed by the girls, Meverson and Sturmitz in eighth, then Noski and Rush in the Commodore hold down ninth, and Crompton and McLeod in 10th.
Pierre Dieudonné, the race leader, on the oval now as they move on to the straight, trailing Neville Crichton in the number 18 car, and that's the speed difference.
And with 27 laps remaining, there are 19 cars remaining in the race. This car and the 46 BMW are the only two cars on the lead lap at the present time. Third place getter, car number 40, is a lap down, as is 42, the Cicotto Brancatelli entry, then 2 laps down to Glenn Seaton and Peter Brock, 3 laps down to Larry Perkins, 4 laps down then to Meverson and Sturmitz, and 6 laps down both to car 26, that's Noski and Rush, and the second Dealer Team Commodore, car 10.
Dieudonné goes through. Meanwhile, Perkins is giving Neville Crichton a working over with the lights flashing at him. Nev gives him the inside run. Looks like Dickie Johnson back driving the 18 car this afternoon.
Looks like Dick to me.
And he, of course, had the 17 car go out much earlier in this race. He's back in at the moment, driving the 18 car in the same manner she drove at Sandown in the Castrol 500.
Dick Johnson was telling me before the race started that he felt the cars handled and turned in just as well as the Eggenberger Sierras, but he felt that they were down on power in a straight line by comparison to the Texaco machines.
Rudy Eggenberger and the Pirelli tyre man in discussion.
Well,
obviously preparing because we would expect that maybe Dieudonné would have a stop before the finish.
we would expect, yeah, one more very quick stop for the Dieudonné car, just to take on a few litres of fuel. Tyres are an interesting thing here because with the extra load that's put on the left-hand side of the car, particularly the left-hand front, most of these cars are set up to understeer slightly around the oval, and the extra load that's put on the left-hand front, although the Pirelli tyre technicians assure the drivers that everything will be all right and the tyres are safe up to over 300 Ks and greater loads than that and so on, they obviously don't want to take any risks at all, and while they've got a bit of time in hand, as has the lead car at the moment, then they're quite prepared to maybe come in and change tyres as well as refuel, and I would think that's the discussion that's going on at the moment. A minute and a half Dieudonné's lead at the moment, so he'll be fairly comfortable to make a quick pit stop, and that's a lead over the Emmanuel Pirro Roberto Revelia, car number 46 BMW M3.
The second Texaco car, by the way, number 7, with Klaus Niedzwitz at the wheel. We saw them changing the rear end and heavens knows what else before with a very long pit stop. Is now back running in 12th position. So as far as World Championship points are concerned, they're obviously going to hang in there for as many as they can get a hold of. They're a long way down on the leader, about 8 laps down, but there's still a long way to go.
Dieudonné's a man of enormous experience and raced for TWR a few years ago. Meantime,
another BMW, and there are plenty of them circulating out here, but this is the 47 car with Mercedes Sturmitz at the wheel, and they are in 8th place. It's a pretty commendable effort. They really didn't get much of a look in the James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst. They took a calculated gamble and stayed out on the track rather than come in for fuel while the pace car was on the track because they didn't want to drop a lap, and whilst they were trying to play it cagey, they ran out of fuel. But it is working out pretty well for them here today, and BMW have done a pretty shrewd thing here, adopting these two girls and giving them a run.
Good things come in small packages goes the saying, and for the Bavarian Motorworks, this compact little rocket has certainly been good for them. The BMW M3 is a tidy racing equation. 4-cylinder 2.3-litre engine has shown amazing pace throughout 1987. Revving to 8,500 with 300 horsepower, the 16-valve double overhead cam unit picks on and regularly thumps its rivals. Carting around only 965 kilograms on rubber suitable for much bigger cars and with massive brakes front and rear, it's easy to see why this motor car has been one of the pace setters in the World Championship.
BMW, any number of them here today for round 9 at Calder Park, and Annette Meverson and Mercedes Sturmitz sharing the 47 car. Mercedes through the bends there and heads down the back straight.
The BM's running 2nd, 3rd, 4th at present behind the Steve Soper, Pierre Dieudonné, Texaco Sierra. The Sierras have made the front running pretty much since the flag dropped. In fact, car 7, which had all that trouble and is now back in the pack in 12th place, led for 4 laps. The 43 BMW of Alfred Hagar led for 1 lap, and Soper has led for the rest of the race. The Jag Parts car with a little overheating problem, car number 23, Gerald Grant and Gerald Kay rather, and Alf Grant, running near the tail of the field. I say near the tail of the field with only 19 survivors. That makes them 16th.
Well, they've got a big overheating problem here, which they're trying to remedy at the moment. One of the consistent runners for the Australian Touring Car Championship, the Jag Parts entry.
They found the pace a little hot, I think, with the Sierras and the BMWs, but then again, so's everybody else. 22. Do we look at 22? Who's 16? Oh, we've had a look at them. Rush and, no, that's not Rush and Noski, is that? Oh, Lusty and Lusty. We better have a look at, oh yeah, that's Lusty. We should have a look at 22, Clem. Yeah, we should have.
Well, when we come to Calder Park, the weather conditions change on the half hour. Oh, all right. Give us the girls first, then this. A sparse but enthusiastic crowd. No, we couldn't do that. Well, the conditions at Calder Park this afternoon. Get it right this time. Conditions at Calder Park this afternoon seem to vary at 30-minute periods. Here's a couple. They've got their Heineken and they're rugged up for the occasion. Out on the racetrack, the Lusty Brothers Commodore continues. Couldn't get that, Clem, if we tried. Okay, the Starion for a minute.
Well, listen, we haven't had a look at that little 100 car just in front of the Starion either, the Alpha 33. It's leading its class because it's the only one in the class.
Okay. Yes, okay.
Right.
The Lusty family then, car number 22, and they're having a better run this weekend than they had at Bathurst last weekend when they had 2 goes at destroying the car. This weekend it's still going after some 3 hours of racing rather. Just 20 laps to go.
They enjoy their racing, and of course they're regulars on the touring car trail throughout 1987. And as you said, they almost destroyed the car in the final practice for the James Hardy Classic a week ago, and then had a coming together with the wall at Forest Elbow during the race itself. So things are panning out a little better for them today at Calder.
Klaus Ludwig there, not looking too happy with life. The car, not all that it might have been. And who can blame him? World Championship, he can see slipping away from his grasp after a fabulous run last weekend, which he only got caught out in the pits towards the end of the race with the pace car situation. This weekend, gearbox and diff problems.
Is Klaus Niedzwitz, who has taken over the Texaco number 7 Sierra after their prolonged pit stop. At the moment he's trailing George Fury down the start finishing straight to the left-hander and back onto the oval. And with still enough laps to go that maybe Niedzwitz and Ludwig could still finish in the top 10.
Car 100, the little Alpha, running well and leading its class by dint of the fact that it's the only car left running in its class. The Toyota that was here has expired, unfortunately, and that in fact was a backup car, with the other 2 Team Toyota Australia cars having been destroyed at Bathurst last weekend. They had to run the backup front-wheel drive car, and Daniel Toffoli at the wheel of this car now. Giorgio Francia was driving it earlier on, and it too has had a few problems during the race. Had a a misfire earlier on, which they thought was a fuel pressure problem, and eventually I think it cured itself, but the car back out running strongly at the moment, and as we said, leading its car. So this car, I'm sure, is registered for World Championship points, so he'll score a maximum.
Car in the class of its own.
Larry Perkins puts another lap on it. And things are working out better for him now than I think perhaps he suspected at the start of the race. I'm sure he could see a repeat of Bathurst with that first corner melee. But things are starting to look good again for him now. Perkins cruising along in 7th place at the moment, and there's a lap down on the man ahead of him, which is Peter Brock, the second best Commodore, and he's been the most consistent Commodore all season throughout the Australian Touring Car Championship. As we said, things didn't work out for him last weekend at Bathurst, but it's looking a bit better for him here at Calder this weekend.
Round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship continues. Larry Perkins, after the problems of the first lap, still giving the BMWs a hard time. Let's check out the positions on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper and Dieudonné continue to lead from Pirro's BMW, then Ostrike in the next BMW, Cicotto in the next BMW. Then comes Glenn Seaton and George Fury, 5th on the road in 15. 6th is Brox and Parts. Sorry.
Larry Perkins and Denny Hulme, they're in 7th position on the racetrack in the number 11 Commodore. As the laps run out of the race, let's check it on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper, Dieudonné continue to lead from Pirro and Ravalia. Then 1 lap down, we've got Ostrich and Ratzenberger in 3rd spot, followed by Cicotto and Brancatelli, also 1 lap down. Seaton and Fury 2 laps down in the Peter Jackson Nissan. 6th spot, Brock and Parsons in the dealer team Commodore, also 2 laps down. Then Perkins 3 laps down in his Commodore with Denny Hulme. The 47 car is the girls Meverson and Sturmitz, 4 laps down in position 8. Position 9 is car 26, Noski and Rush are 6 laps down, as are Crompton and McLeod in the number 10 car.
Peter Brock stands by to take over the number 5 car. That's
Brock's in it.
.05 Mobile Commodore comes to the pits.
Peter Brock points towards the back of the car.
And again, I'd say they've got a problem with the seat. It's amazing how many problems we've seen over the last couple of races with seats breaking. And it looks like the 6 car also coming into the pits. The car leading the race for a quick pit stop. Meantime, the number 10 car, the second of the Brock Commodores.
Got a
flat
flat
tyre. That's Neil Crompton behind the wheel, so dramas galore for the mobile dealer team. The Texaco Ford number 6, the lead car, is also in the pits.
Trouble for Brock, trouble for Crompton, and trouble also for Pierre Dieudonné. Whether or not that's a scheduled stop for the Texaco car remains to be seen. They were the race leaders with a fairly healthy margin, of course, over the second 46 BMW.
And while the Brock team are working on the 05 car to fix the seat, Neil Crompton has arrived with a flat on the 10 car. And there it is. Looks like he's going to stay in the car. Peter McLeod was standing by. Crompton ready to go straight back out again. Was running 10th. And he stays in the car and continues. Meanwhile, 05 stays in the pits. Building up speed slowly on the banked turns of the Thunderdome, Neil Crompton, car number 10, the second of the dealer team. Let's have a look. That's perhaps what did cause a flat. Looked like an anxious moment coming off the bowl, last lap around. But he's been to the pits for a quick pit stop, fresh rubber, and continues in the number 10 car. Meanwhile, still in the pits, a dejected Peter Brock takes time out for a cool drink while mechanics work on trying to brace the seat. Almost shades of John Goss a couple of years ago at Bathurst. And maybe the drivers today are finding out that the buffeting that they get on the oval here, which is not the smoothest oval, let me tell you, it's got a couple of pretty wild bumps in it, and it will find any flaws at all. So Brock being belted up.
I should think also the G-forces that the banking creates. If you've got to drive around there at the sort of speeds these boys are doing that at, a broken seat is something that you really would not want.
Well, it's been a costly stop for Peter Brock. Crew is still working on trying to hold the seat rigid in the car. As you can see, they've done a lot of work. They've tried bracing it to the side of the cage. Still, it's not the place you want to race with a seat that is even suspect. Brock trying to fire the engine. Now it starts. So Brocky's back out, but that stop has been a costly one. number 42. John Franco Brancatelli in car number 42, still running fourth in the race and making up a lot of ground on Roland Ratzenberger in the number 40 BMW, just ahead of him. Brancatelli has been throwing the Mark Petch Seals entry around. Oh, trouble for the Lusty brothers and a bit of Leyland brothers. Got out in the rough. Only 30 seconds the difference from first to second between Pierre Dieudonné and of course the combination of Emanuele Pirro and Roberto Ravaglia in the number 46 BMW.
And we'll keep an eye to that gap just to make sure it doesn't come down any further. It was 1.5 minutes. The Dieudonné car, of course, had a final pit stop just to top up with fuel, which would have made the minutes difference. We'll just keep an eye to that to make sure things don't change.
Lusty brothers in the war again. Let's catch it on our Park Royal replay. Coming off the oval. Oh, that was a right royal lose. Almost got Prince Leopold. John Franco Brancatelli coming around the banks of the still running fourth, John Franco Brancatelli in the number 42 Mark Petch Seals BMW M3. Problems a little earlier for the Lusty boys. They've been in the car wars, as you can see. Coming off the oval, just finding a path around the stranded Leopold von Bayen BMW, then getting out into the rough. An anxious moment, they're able to continue.
Brancatelli coming into the pits in the 42 BMW in fourth position on the track. Whether that holds now remains to be seen. No driver change, but the bonnet's up.
Olio, I think means oil in most languages, so that would be the problem. There it goes. Just as Gianfranco was all set with third place, things take a dive for him.
Well, he had a lap on the next placed car, the fifth car, which was George Fury in the 15 Peter Jackson Nissan. But unless they get a move on, they could very well drop that lap. Now they're back out and still, well, they're about to go back out and still in fourth place.
A quick pit stop. John Franco Brancatelli, the Mark Petch entry, back onto the racetrack again. Had a grip on fourth, but then they needed the adjip to continue.
Yep. The Dulux Mitsubishi Starion, car number 16. Gary Scott and Akihiko Nakaya running in 13th position outright on the track at the present time. They are 8 laps down on the leader, but they're also a fair amount of horsepower down on the leader, so they put up a pretty good performance.
As one of these cars runs in the British Championship from time to time, and the last time I saw it run, which was the Grand Prix meeting at Silverstone, it was the only thing that could offer any resistance at all to the Sierra Cosworth.
Well, I think George Shepherd and the Dulux Auto Colour crew have done a great job. It, of course, finished in the top 10 at the James Hardie 1000 and has run here basically trouble-free in 2 days of qualifying, practice, and of course today's 500k event.
With all the attention that's been on the invasion of European drivers, people have tended to overlook Akihiko Nakaya, but he's a very, very competent man behind the wheel, complements Gary Scott perfectly, and the two of them have done a terrific job. There has been one change in the top 10. There's race leader Pierre Dieudonné in the number 6 Texaco car, and teammate Klaus Niedzwitz has moved the number 7 car into the top 10 again, into 10th place after all the troubles that they had earlier with the diff, rear end. So the Texaco's running 1st and 10th as the race gets close to a conclusion.
There's the second of the Texaco cars, Klaus Niedzwitz, now into the top 10, giving the car a good working over. Picked the pace up in the last couple of laps. Whether or not the Piero Rivalia 46 BMW can pull back our race leader, Pierre Dieudonné, we'll have to wait and see. It was out to 1.5 minutes, dropped to 46 seconds, now I believe about 26 seconds, and the gap has been coming down.
Klaus Niedzwitz at the wheel of the number 7 car, and you'd be interested to learn, Mike, that one of his part-time jobs among the many things that he does is a television commentator for ZDF television in Germany.
Yes, we've had quite a number of the overseas television people out recording interviews with the drivers to complement Seven's coverage, the global coverage of not only the James Hardie 1000 but also today's Bob Jane T-Marts 100 from Calder Park.
Niedzwitz just dived in front of the stereo that we were looking at a little earlier there. And watch as they come onto the straight how the Sierra Cosworth pulls away from the stereo and leaves it almost as if it was standing still. And if it doesn't, there's something wrong with it.
Absolutely right. Approaching the left-hander at the end of the front straight at Calder Park. Niedzwitz now works his way onto the Thunderdome Oval. They run the car high into commencement of the turn and then drop down very low. Come out very close against the concrete wall. Then it's back to about mid-track. In high again, drop off the bank, down to the low line, get set, drop onto the flat almost here to take the left-hander and brings them back onto the old road course. 8 laps to go in the Bob Jane T-Marts 100. Just as he came through that corner, that's where the Lusty brothers came to grief a little earlier. Let's have a look. Slipping just around the outside of Prince Leopold von Bayern stranded BMW M3. Gets the car into the rough here, takes it across the racetrack. Nobody was coming, and just backs it into the rough. Niedzwitz goes through. Still running in 10th spot overall. The race being led by the number 6 Texaco car. And that, of course, the one driven by Pierre Dieudonné.
number 7 car, Klaus Ludwig. Oh, Jesus, I'll get it right in a minute. Let's do it again. On the bank turns of Thunderdome, the number 7 Texaco Sierra, Klaus Niedzwitz at the wheel in 10th spot on the track. But let's check the top 10 on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper, Dieudonné continue to lead from Pirro and Ravalia in the BMW. Then Osterreich and Rassenberger in position number 3, also in a BMW, as are Cicotto and Brancatelli. Let's do now. 43. Who is that? Is it Sabre or Dieudonné? Pierre Dieudonné. Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel of car number 6, the leading car, the Texaco Sierra. Let's check the top 10 on the Castrol scoreboard. Soper, Dieudonné in the lead from Pirro and Ravalia in the first of the BMWs, followed by Osterreich and Ratzenberger, then Cicotto and Brancatelli. 5th spot, Seaton and Fury in the Peter Jackson Nissan, then Perkins and Hulme in the Commodore in 6th position, followed by Meverson and Sturmitz in the 47 BMW entry. Brock and Parsons hold down 8th position in the Commodore, then Noski and Rush in a Commodore, and Ludwig and Niedzwitz round out the top 10.
Dieudonné continues to lead. Oh, here's an anxious moment. That looks like the Cullen Sprague Commodore. It's missed the hill completely. And it's just charging across the infield. Whether or not it can get it back on, though. No, it's stopped. They've lost an engine. Car number 31 exits the World Touring Car Championship round from Calder Park. the BMW, presently second on the road. It's the Emanuele Pirro, Roberto Ravaglia car. Roberto at the wheel at the moment. They're looking good for a very comfortable second place this afternoon, and in fact, in the last few laps, have been making great gains on the race leader, Pierre Dieudonné.
Yes, indeed, they've been chopping the distance down slowly by about a second a lap, but at this stage of the race, I suspect that Dieudonné is just taking it easy and not risking any more than he has to.
He's kept the gap at a steady 30 seconds now for the last 10 laps, in fact, and is controlling the race from the front, and is no doubt being controlled equally by Rudi Eggenberger in the pits, who's advising him exactly what's happening.
There's Ravaglia. I guess a good consolation prize considering the bad luck that he encountered in last week's James Hardy 1000, being stretchered off. But he's back, and so too the Schnitzer and CBM teams today, and they've been running very, very strongly indeed on this circuit that the majority of folks believed would suit the Commodores rather than the M3s.
From the World Touring Car Championship point of view, of course, with the Fords and the BMWs running in different classes, and Ravaglia therefore now scoring top points, it means that as far as he's concerned, he keeps a chance still over the Fords, because with Ludwig falling back in this race, he's not going to win his class, he's not going to win the race, and therefore points-wise it's going to make it that much more exciting.
2 rounds of the World Championship still to go. The Nissan Mobile 500 on the streets of Wellington in New Zealand in a couple of weeks' time. The grand final on November 15th at Mount Fuji in Japan. Looks like going all the way to the wire between the Texaco Ford Sierras and, of course, the BMW M3s. Two laps to go in round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship from Calder Park Thunderdome in Victoria. And here's Pierre Dieudonné, our race leader in the Rudi Eggenberger Texaco Ford Sierra, holding a gap of just over 30 seconds from Roberto Ravaglia in the first of the BMW M3s. In third spot, Roland Ratzenberger and Gianfranco Brancatelli. Highest placed Australian at this stage is George Fury. And there's Klaus Ludwig, who perhaps is watching his World Championship slip away here today at Calder. His co-driver, of course, is in the top 10, Klaus Niedzwitz, but I think they were looking at a win here today, or at worst, a runner-up spot.
If it had been a runner-up spot, it certainly wouldn't have been to this car, because the deal would be at this stage of the season that the number 6 car would have to give way to Ludwig's car so that Ludwig can score more points in the championship and tie it up as early and as easily as possible. They don't want to risk anything at all. And one of the dilemmas earlier on was whether or not Klaus Niedzwitz should have been sent out in this car instead of Pierre Dieudonné. It was elected not to because Ford would like to have 2 world champions.
They might have made a tactical mistake here, because if things didn't go well for them over the water in Wellington, or they didn't go well in Japan, it could see the World Championship going to BMW.
Steve Soper's girlfriend Lulu there alongside of him, and they look fairly pleased. Well, they might. The second win in a row for Steve Soper and Pierre Dieudonné in the number 6 Texaco Sierra Cosworth.
Coming down through the right-hander, Pierre Dieudonné. It's almost a case of Bathurst revisited for Rudy Eggenberger and his Texaco Ford team. They come on to the start-finishing here at Calder Park this afternoon. Coming across the line with 1 lap remaining. And everything running beautifully for Rudy Eggenberger. They come onto the banking of the back straight here at Calder Park onto the Thunderdome Oval. And sweeping down on the inside, taking Murray Carter's Netcom Nissan in its stride. The Ford Sierra just hurdles away from the opposition as it comes down through the tri-oval.
The Ford team have done a remarkable job, Michael, insofar as they've picked up a car which has never actually run on a banked circuit before, with all the stresses and strains and things that happen, and come here and won the race when everybody thought that they'd be brittle and they wouldn't make it.
Picking up the back wheel as it comes on its final lap down into the right-hander at Valvoline corner. Big win coming up for Pierre Dieudonné. Steve Soper was able to drive the last lap in the James Hardy last week. Now Pierre is going to get the feeling of what it's like a week later in the Bob Jane T-Mart's 100 at Calder Park Thunderdome.
And for both of these drivers, it's only their second World Touring Car Championship win. Last week at Bathurst was the first, this is the second.
Being trailed here by Gianfranco Brancatelli in the Mark Petch Seals BMW. At the number 6 Texaco Ford, Pierre Dieudonné at the wheel comes down to the right-hander for the final time. Checkered flag at the ready, and the Bob Jane T-Mart's 100, round 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. And it's the Belgian journalist racer creating a little of his own headlines as he takes the checkered flag to win here today at Calder Park. Second spot will go to Roberto Ravaglia in the BMW M3. Third place to Roland Ratzenberger. Fourth to Gianfranco Brancatelli. The first Australian home being George Fury in 5th place, clear of Larry Perkins in 6th. And Mercedes Sturmitz from the BMW team taking 7th spot. Congratulations go to both Steve Soper, Pierre Dieudonné, and of course Rudy Eggenberger on another flawless performance by the number 6 Texaco Ford Sierra that's shone like a star at Calder today. Second place goes across the line some 36 seconds in arrears, followed then by Roland Ratzenberger. Coming off the oval, locking it up. Let's recap the placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Pierre Dieudonné crosses for victory. Second spot goes to Roberto Ravaglia in the M3. Third place to Roland Ratzenberger. Fourth to Gianfranco Brancatelli. Fifth place to George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. Sixth place going to Larry Perkins in the Commodore. Seventh to Mercedes Sturmitz in the BMW. Eighth spot to Peter Brock, broken seat and all. Ninth spot to Tony Noski in the Commodore. And finishing 10th, Klaus Ludwig and Klaus Niedzwitz.
Well, they've done the impossible. Steve Soper and Pierre Dieudonné, back-to-back wins in the James Hardy 1000, now here at Calder in rounds 8 and 9 of the World Touring Car Championship. A fantastic effort, Pierre.
Yeah, I think we are really a good team, no?
Excellent. It was a very hard race out there today, and the two different circuits running together makes it a bit awkward, I think.
Yes, but again, Steve did a fantastic job. I think he won the race in the first part of it, because when he gave it to me, we had a very big lead. And we knew we could have transmission problem. This circuit was very hard on transmission, so it was mainly a question for me to nurse the car back home and bring it to the finish, because we knew also that the other car had some transmission failure.
Yeah, Steve, your teammates Klaus Ludwig and Klaus Niedzwitz had a bit of bad luck today.
Yeah, but that's the way it goes. That's what motor racing's all about. We've had bad luck, and now we are in Australia, and it's looking good for us. So, you know, there's still a couple more races to go. But I'm very happy. I think the team did a fantastic job with the pit stops and everything, and I'd obviously like to thank Eggenberger for a fantastic car, which again ran trouble-free from the start to the finish.